Hello, friends. It is Tony. I'm back with another fantastic episode of Women In. Before I introduce my fabulous guest, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women and the individuals in their lives who are lifting them up. You're going to hear from all kinds of super cool people in my life, and they're going to share their stories to inspire others to support all the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. This is what I'm passionate about. Breaking down barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you happen to be in my family and friends circle. Let me tell you about my fabulous guest today. Lena Austin is joining me, and Lena is a dedicated professional and a natural connector with a passion for fostering meaningful relationships. Recognized as the 2024 Chamber Ambassador of the Year, she thrives on creating spaces where everyone feels heard, valued, and supported. A 4-time recipient of the President's Award at Greenleaf Hospitality Group, Lena is known for consistently exceeding expectations and delivering results. She's also an alumni of the 2022 Leadership Greater Kalamazoo program, where she deepened her commitment to personal growth and community engagement. In her current role as Sales and Marketing Director at Vineyard Assisted Living, Lena helps seniors and their families navigate the transition from living independently to assisted living. She is devoted to ensuring they feel supported, informed every step of the way. When not making an impact professionally, Lena enjoys reading, hiking with her dog, and riding her horse, and embracing activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Hi, Lena.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Yeah. How is it to hear your bio read back to you?
It's very interesting. You know, this was my first time using a AI to help me write something, so it was pretty cool.
I know, I've been dabbling with AI a little bit as well, and it's handy. It's handy, but then I'm like, am I cheating? I don't know, but it's okay. Like, it helps. It makes my job faster.
Absolutely.
So we start off with the same question, then who knows where we go from here, but I won't take it too far down the rabbit hole. But how did we meet?
So we met in 2015 when you started with the K-Wings. It was at a Manager of the Year celebration in Burdick's.
Yes, and so we worked, and that was hard to believe that was a decade ago. We haven't changed a bit, have we?
Not at all.
And tell everyone what you did when you were at Greenleaf Hospitality Group, because I'm on the hockey side, and we're a whole hospitality company. So, and you were on the other side of the business.
Yes,
And
I was on the hotel side.
Yeah.
I started with Greenleaf with Holiday Inn West early 2009. And a year in, they consolidated sales teams. So then I got the opportunity to be able to sell for both properties, which was awesome. So my sales market was what in hospitality we call the Smurf market. So I sold sports, military, education, religious, and fraternal conferences and groups. I also worked with a number of businesses in the area to manage their group travel.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that term, Smurf, other than the cartoons.
Right.
Did you watch the Smurfs growing up?
Absolutely. Yes, I did.
I did too, but I just learned something new, the Smurf market. And is that just a term that's just in hospitality?
Pretty much, yes. Discover Kalamazoo uses it as well because they have their Smurf person. So I worked really closely with them when I was in that market. So yeah, I was with Greenleaf for about 8 years.
Well, for those of you in hospitality that are listening to this, and now I've been in hospitality for a decade, I'm just learning this, but on the sports side, that's something cool. I love learning new things. That's really cool. So you've been an avid listener of this podcast. And
yes, I have.
You and I see each other in person because we both live in Kalamazoo. But tell me what drew you to listening to the podcast and then wanting to be on the podcast.
Sure. So I think about, during pre-COVID and into COVID, I started reading a lot, joined 3 book clubs. And then this podcast thing started. I started hearing all this stuff about it. And so I had reached out to friends of mine that I said, what podcast do you listen to? I don't even know how to get to a podcast. Help me understand this. So from that point on, anything anybody was telling me to listen to, I was listening. I love true crime, like you.
Yeah.
So definitely a Dateline listener. My husband always says, "Are you listening to that podcast that teaches you how to kill me and not get caught?" Again, I'm like, "Shh, you're interrupting." Um, but then I've always been an avid learner, lifelong learner. Like I just want to know all the things. So when I started hearing about other podcasts that were, very much professional development driven or personal development driven, I just couldn't stop. And then yours popped up. I'm like, oh my gosh, Tony has a podcast. Love her. I just had to listen. So especially when some of my, former Greenleaf people that I worked with were on it, Tim Raymond and Craig Davies and Sam. So I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to listen to this, which then drove me to say, I've never done anything like this before, but it's really cool. And I've learned so much from other people's stories that I didn't know about them. Now I do, that I wanted to share what I have in hopes of maybe, supporting or kind of giving other people encouragement.
Absolutely. And I loved when you and I met and you were like, Tony, so BHAGs was something we were talking
Yep.
about. And if anyone doesn't know what a BHAG is, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. And Lena said to me, I have a BHAG. And I said, oh, good. What is it? She goes, to be on your podcast. And I said, done. So one of the things is when I first started in this space, and I've been on a lot of podcasts. And by the way, I never thought I would have my own podcast. That was never a goal of mine. But I was like, well, I want to start to get some reps in. So I had some friends that had podcasts, but I was kind of nervous about asking them because I didn't want to seem like, I don't know. I didn't know. Is this how it works? I have no clue. And they were like, of course. And so I have such respect for people that raise their hand and say, I want to do this. And I'm like, yeah. And I sent you the stuff and here we are. So good for you. And I want to talk later on about sales because you're in sales. And, I'm wildly passionate about sales in the sense that I created a whole curriculum about sales isn't a dirty word. And it's really, and you're a perfect example of that. Like you're out there in the community doing a lot of things to create your own brand, sell what you are doing for a living, but also sell yourself. But it's not selling. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So I go down that rabbit hole to give you props and
Thank
hope
you.
and encourage other people to do the same. So I started this podcast for a lot of reasons. One of which, and I say in the intro, to lift women up, but I'm a minority in a very male dominated field. And I got to thinking about other women and the next generation. So I do a lot of work in sports to help bring in the ladies that are behind me and put them in the elevator, the proverbial elevator with me, and take them up to their glass ceilings and help break them through. So when you think about your career and where you're at and who has helped you get in said elevator, the women, and move them up, who are the women in your life that have made Lena who Lena is today?
So in thinking about this for the last couple of weeks, it was kind of difficult because I would say that, I mean, certainly my mom was a huge impact. She was very, very driven to be professional and always taught me from a young age, like, you're on time. Like, on time is late. 10 minutes early is on time. You are respectful of the elderly. You are respectful to anybody that's older to you. I always sat in the middle, in the back seat all the time because, like, that's where I should be because everybody else, there was respect there. So definitely my mom in that aspect, teaching me how to be in that work world. But then also there was a lady that was kind of like in your position where I used to work for Life Touch National School Studios. So right out of high school, I moved to Indiana and started working there. My mom had worked for the company for quite a few years at that point, and her territory manager, her name was Joanne Clock. She was like the first woman territory manager in the Michigan area. And once you reach like a 20-year point, you got this ring. Well, at the point she got her ring, there were no female rings. It was male rings only. Yeah. And they were like, do we need to change this? She's like, oh no, I earned this. Like, this is mine. And she had this honking like monster ring on her hand. But the weird part was I didn't have a whole lot of women looking at me and trying to help guide me. So I saw what she was doing, but I didn't know how to get there. So, that being said, I didn't have a whole lot of women, I think, in that space helping me. A lot of it was, well, we figured it out. Now it's your turn,
Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's where this part of this podcast stemmed from. When I was sitting on a panel and they asked me, like, who are the women that mentored you? And I sat there and I'm like, it was all men.
Yeah, for
It
me
was, and a
too,
lot
pretty
of it was
much.
my dad. Yeah, it was my dad, and then I've had a lot of male bosses, and then I'm like, I gotta do something about this, and so I can relate to that. Tell everyone. I think most people know what Life Touch is, but if you don't, tell everyone what Life Touch is.
Sure. So Life Touch is a national school picture company that was employee owned. They were the top cream of the crop, picture company. We did everything from sports pictures to school pictures to yearbooks, everything. And it was the company you wanted to work for. I worked for them in 4 different territories in 3 different states over about 13 years cumulatively. So, um, yeah.
And were you taking pictures, or were you sales, or what were you doing in those roles for
So
13 years? That's a long
I started out as in photography,
time.
literally when I was 19. So I moved to Evansville, Indiana, and started working for one of our satellite offices. And then I decided I wanted to do more. So when that office ended up closing, I came back to um, Michigan and I worked in the Howell office. So Howell, Michigan, near Brighton, and started then doing learning sports pictures and started dabbling in the yearbook side of it. After that, I ended up coming back to Kalamazoo area and getting into sales. So under Joanne Clock as the territory manager. All of her salespeople photographed as well. So it was kind of cool because I was able to kind of photograph my school so I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and take care of them on the day we were photographing. After that, I did end up moving to Arizona. So my mom and my stepfather had moved out to Arizona with Life Touch. So my mom called me and said, hey, there's an opportunity out here. What do you think? You'd have your own office, your own territory. You wouldn't have to photograph anymore. So my daughter was 5 in kindergarten, and my son, I was pregnant for my son at the time. So I asked my husband, I'm like, what do you think? He's like, well, if we're going to do it, now's the time. So I had a conversation with the territory manager, Matt, at the time. And I'm like, I know you can't discriminate because I'm pregnant, but my mom told you I'm pregnant, right? Like, I'm going to be out there working for you for 4 months, and then I'm going to be off for at least a month. And yep. So I spent 2 years out there, sales primarily. But what was super cool about me is that I could photograph for the schools too. So I'd pop in and give my photographers a break and take pictures for them. Whereas none of the other salespeople could do that because they didn't know how. After that, then we decided to move back 2 years later to Michigan, and I was with the company again. However, at that point, finances being what they weren't able to pay me enough to stay. So that was August of 2007, and that's when I began my hospitality career. So I started at Staybridge Suites over on Stadium, and yeah.
So what pulled you to hospitality? Because it's interesting. You have we can talk about your career progression here a little bit and knowing where you're at now, you had 3 different career changes in your tenure of work, and you've been working how many years now? 20, 25?
Yeah. Oh, 20 yeah. To 25 well, years. I mean, I started as a bagger at 16. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, we can go way back, girl.
Yeah, right.
Where did you? Well, that's funny because I just had a flashback of what grocery store were you at?
I opened the Westmaid Meijer.
You did? Okay. So my first job was at the Bob Evans on South Westnedge here as a busser. And I always came home smelling like syrup and sausage.
Oh, yeah.
But wait, I'd like to talk about this too. Do you remember how much you made per hour?
$7.25
as a bagger? That's good.
Yeah. Well, I was the service bagger. Let's be real here. I mean, I got to run around, and if you cracked your eggs or if you forgot something, the cashiers would have their lights going, and I'd run over and go, "What do you need?" And I'd run back to find what they needed. So
you were a level, like the next level up.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there was no service busser. It was just, but I made back in 1996, 94 was when I had my first job, $4.25 an hour.
Yeah, I think it was 93 for me when I started because I was 16. So, yeah.
Yeah, but you were making $3 more an hour than me. I should have been down the road.
Yeah, you should have been. You would have to go out in the snowstorms though, and in the rain, and push carts. So that was not any fun.
pushing car. I know we're in a rabbit hole. See, I told you I take you down. Pushing carts in the snow, it is no joke.
No, it's not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm like, this is a sport. You get your heart rate up. Anyways, all right, I digress. So I want to move to the second part of your career when you get into hospitality. And
Yes.
this is when, and so you start in photography sales. Well, you're a photographer, then into sales, and then you move to hospitality. What made you move to hospitality?
So I was just kind of looking for, I'm always looking for something, not like what the job is, but what it's about. And I've always liked to be a resource for people. And so I was just kind of looking through, I don't know if it was Monster at the time or that wasn't Indeed at the time when I was looking. And it just kind of popped up and I read the description about relationship building and it was a different type of hotel. So it was an extended stay hotel, which I didn't have any history with that at all. I just figured you go stay at a hotel for 2 nights and you leave. And this one was more about long-term stays. So 5 to 7 plus nights. It was really just a way to keep something in my back pocket if being at Life Touch when I got home wasn't going to work out. So it really wasn't what I wanted. But then when I found out, the money issue with Life Touch and that wasn't going to be sustainable, I was like, okay, I got this. I have a second interview coming up and we'll go with it. It was close to home. The hours were good. And I was up for a new opportunity.
And what did you find that you loved about hospitality?
I really loved the relationship building. So they were coming to me. So in the picture world, I'm going to all these schools and asking them to do business with us. And they may have another picture company that has been grandfathered in forever, or the principal has a family relationship with or something. And so they would never switch. Here it was like nursing school. They would have 7, 8 nurses that were coming in to do long-term training and they needed someplace to stay for 3 weeks. Actually, PetSmart over on West Main had a grooming school. And so they would bring people from all the different PetSmarts here to go to this grooming school for 2 weeks and they needed someplace to stay. So it was really cool to just hear all the different reasons why people would need to come to Kalamazoo and stay for a long time. And then I got the opportunity to create and customize their stay for them. Like, what do you need out of this? What can we do? They had full kitchens there at Staybridge, free laundry services, dinner twice a week. So it was a totally different layout of a hotel than what most people are used to.
Yeah.
When the railroad came to town, Grand Elk Railroad, I was so excited to be able to work with them and set up their school basically not their school, but their interview process. So their interview process all happened at Staybridge. Everybody that was interviewing for this Grand Elk Railroad came there. And anybody that came to town on the higher levels had to stay for a week, 10 days, 2 months. So I was able to be very instrumental in making that process run very smoothly.
Yeah. And so it's like you're passionate about, as I'm sitting there thinking, when you are you're curating something custom for these people who are visiting this community, you continue to find yourself moving back to this community you love because you've been Indiana, Arizona, and you keep coming back here. So was that fueling this love for Kalamazoo?
Definitely. I love the seasons in Michigan itself. I don't mind winter. I mean, this one dragged on a little long, but in Arizona, I always said it was dry, dusty, dirty, and brown. Yeah. There were great parts about it, don't get me wrong, but I love the seasons and I love the Kalamazoo area. There's so many small towns around the big towns and Detroit and Chicago, and you're kind of in the middle of everything, but you can also be in the country. So, I mean, I live outside of the Pawpaw Gobles area on 10 acres. So I'm close to town if I want to be, but I'm also very out of all the crazy of the city.
So take us through, then you went from hospitality, which is where we met, which we touched on at the top, and now and it's in your bio, you work for an assisted living facility, and you've been there how long now?
4 years.
4 years. Talk about that. And you and I have talked a lot about this personally because my mom moved into a memory care facility before she passed a couple months ago. And so I had appreciation for what you did. but I have a next level appreciation for everyone that works in this space, because as it's written in your bio, this is a major life transition from living independently to in a facility. And yours isn't at this stage a memory care even. It's just someone that's living in a retirement-esque community. I'm probably getting language wrong because I don't want to. So correct me. But tell me about that transition and what, because I know I've been there and I've seen you get a lot of fulfillment out of this as well. So I want to hear about this stage of your career.
Yeah. So, kind of how that transition happened was not even from hospitality to this, but I was at Greenleaf for 8 years, and in 2016 is when I left Greenleaf and went back to Life Touch, and I was able to work from home. We had somebody buy our company out, and so at that point they changed a lot of things. So after working from home for 3 years, homeschooling my son, and then I had to kind of look for something else. So I literally just like threw some of my passion words and, core values and things that I'd like to do on Indeed. And I was like, okay, what's going to come up? So this position came up, and I had never thought about working in assisted living at all. I never had anybody in my space, in my circle, in my family that had went to assisted living. I'd visited a nursing home before, but that was it. So connection for me, and why I kind of looked into it was, and hopefully we'll talk about this guy later. But John Janko was my favorite boss in the entire world. 6 years at Greenleaf, he was my director of sales. When he left Greenleaf in 2014, he did a couple things, but then ended up as a regional director of sales for Brookdale communities. So I knew that, and I called him and I said, what about me says this is a good idea or a bad idea? Mm-hmm. And he gave me all the support in the world. And he said, Lena, you've always been a relationship builder. You've always been able to be very creative and problem solver. So this is a really great space for you to be able to help these people. So I'm like, okay. Had a very first interview. And it was kind of funny because it was still during COVID. So we were still wearing masks, and I wanted to like lighten the mood a little bit, I guess, when I came into my interview, and I had a St. Julian winery mask on that said, "Will remove for wine." And I'm like, they're going to love this or hate this. I mean, but I think it's great. So the administrator at the time thought it was hysterical, and we just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about John a little bit. Since you brought him up, I don't want to forget. And he left Greenleaf before, because I started in 2015. So I never met him. Now, is he still, and Brookdale is actually where my mom ended up living. Right. Is he still at Brookdale? And tell us more about what that relationship meant to you, because
absolutely,
clearly he's an important person to you.
So he is not at Brookdale anymore. He's made a couple different changes, but he's still in senior living in the Chicago area. So I will say my first, hospitality stint at Staybridge was about 1.5 years. It was wonderful to get my feet wet. But the environment wasn't very supportive there, with the general manager and stuff. And so as being in that hospitality space, I got to meet all these different hoteliers, at Discover Kalamazoo events or trainings or whatever. And so that's when I met John. I met him in like early 2008. And he just like hit me as this just wonderful, supportive, easy to talk to person. So transition happened in like March of 2009, where I ended up getting to work for Greenleaf. So that was fabulous. I remember my son was about 3 at the time, and he was in our sales office at the Holiday Inn, doing what boys do, just running around, taking things off desks. And John just looked at me and he goes, Lena, they're welcome here. Mm. And it was like this huge thing for me, because the general manager at Staybridge was an older woman who was, I just think, very unhappy in her life at the time. And that was not the case there at all. My daughter had come to work with me one day for a snow day, and she was not pleased. So when he said that to me, I just thought, okay, this is where I need to be. And from that point on, he just was so supportive. At Greenleaf, they do, I don't know if they still do it, but success dialogues. Mm-hmm. So as I'm under him, Every quarter we would meet, and it wasn't about necessarily my job performance or what numbers I had. It was, what are your goals? What can I help you with? What's your next step? What are your passions? I'm here for you. So we became friends, and he was a wonderful mentor to me while I was there. And, since, I've been out to Chicago to visit him a handful of times. He's been here back in Kalamazoo and stops by the house. And, I used to house sit his dog. So just having him be that amazing support, although now everyone gets tired of hearing his name, especially at where I'm at now, it came to the point where one of the administrators was like, so am I just going to have to live up to this expectation? I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, what John describes is a person that clearly he set the tone of a strong culture within the organizations he was leading. And culture is just so important. And not everyone is hardwired to really want to know the people that work with them and truly care about them, and can balance that with the different goals and tasks that leaders are tasked with. So yeah. He's clearly a culture. Culture is very important to him. And,
absolutely.
Kudos to him, and I'm sure he'll listen to this. So John, you're kick ass.
Yes.
Way to go.
Yeah, for him, it wasn't a checklist. You can tell if your boss says, "How was your weekend?" and they're just waiting for you to respond so they can move on. That was not it with him. He genuinely was interested and wanted to make you feel the best you could be, because then you're going to take care of your clients.
Well, and what you're describing is I talk about this when I'm mentoring and people come to me and say, Tony, I'm looking for the next steps. What wisdom can you give me? And you hit on this already. You're like, you went to Indeed or Monster, wherever you were at the time, and you put out there your core values. So here's the thing, and this is the advice I give. Figure out what your core values are and see if they align with the organization or the person you're reporting to. Because if they don't align, and they don't have to be perfect, but if they don't align, you're going to be miserable. Right? And so,
right.
I love that because it clearly your core values with John's, for instance, and where, Vineyard Assisted Living and the places you've worked, they've aligned at some point. And if they haven't aligned, then it's time to move on. And core values change. I like to point that out to everyone. It's not like Lena's got this list and that's it. She's always going to have those same core values. No, they can change.
Definitely.
What are some of the things on your core values list off the top of your head? See, this is where I didn't prep you for this. So
you did not. I would say, being very genuine. Mm-hmm. Being authentic, trustworthy. Tenacious is one of my things. I'm not one that likes to back down from anything. Honorable. Doing what's right when nobody's looking.
Beautiful. I want to know, I'm thinking about just the type of individuals that live in assisted living. And you've told me some stories when you and I meet and have coffee, and you've really built some relationships with these individuals that live there. What's your favorite part about this world of assisted living that you've been in now for the last 4 years?
Well, I would say there's two things. One is just in the very beginning, I get those families that come to me and they are so lost. They don't know what direction to go. They don't know what questions to ask, and they don't know who to trust. And there's so many options that they can choose. One of the wonderful things about Vineyard is it's family owned. And so right there, it really helps put them at ease a little bit that they know they're not having to necessarily deal with a corporation. Mm-hmm. So walking them, step by step, this is what we're going to do first. This is what that timeline's going to look like. What is your mom ready for? Does she need some time? Is she ready now? As a team, we really try to be able to manage all of that, because we may get a phone call from a rehab facility that says, this patient's getting discharged in 4 days. Now for us, we have an assessment we have to do. Can we manage this resident's care? We have paperwork that needs to be filled out by the family, by the doctor. And sometimes that takes time. And so trying to move the needle without pressuring and putting too much more pressure on the family, but still getting them in before the discharge date can be difficult sometimes. I always tell the families, like, I am at your disposal anytime you need me. Text, phone call, email, until, we get you moved in. I'm still obviously there for them after that, but if you have a question at 10 o'clock at night that you're scared, you can't wait till the morning to ask, text me. I'm probably just binge watching something, so I'm going to grab my phone and reply to you. But I just want to make sure they know that they have somebody there, that they don't have to worry that they're bothering me, because I know what they're going through. So that's the first part of, what I love. The second is just really creating those relationships with the residents once they move in. So I always say, when I was 28, I didn't have grandparents anymore. My last grandfather on my dad's side passed away when I was 28. So just having this whole community of grandparents, it was wonderful. My daughter worked at Vineyard for a year, and she made really great relationships. One of our residents we still have was at her wedding. One resident that has since passed was at my son's graduation party. Mm-hmm. So just making those, he was my mentor there. He was a businessman, and he would go, what do you got? What questions you got for me, Lena? And I'd go down and chat with him, and he gave me tons of direction. So definitely being able to, we're not their family, but we're the next best thing if their family can't be there all the time. So we get to take that role and really make them feel like they made the right choice.
Yeah. And so having lived through this, you are 100% spot on. My dad and I were clueless. My mom had very late stage Alzheimer's, and we were like, okay, we didn't know anything. And it is scary, and it is a very hard decision to make, because and it's a little different because it's memory care. How we felt was, are we making the right decision? Because my dad was 81 years old. He's taking care of my mom, who continues to decline. There's a lot of guilt, and there's overlap there. There's got to be, there's so much guilt. And then let's talk about it for a second. The sticker shock of assisted living. It is not inexpensive for good reason, right? It is, you're living there full time. It's not like you all get food and electricity and water and all the things for free. So how do you navigate, speaking of sales, how do you navigate this as a salesperson, professional, marketing, all these things? Because it is a business, but it is such a sensitive space for so many people that are looking to move into to move a loved one. So how do you explain that using, without being, like you said, too pushy? Any tips or tricks for someone who is in selling something else that could be in a sensitive topic? And I want to say this too, because I started my career in banking, and when you're dealing with people's money, that is serious and sensitive. So what would you say to, that was a very long, I got coffee, Lena, I am fired up. But
right.
Yeah. What would you teach someone in that space?
So I would say, just in the three main careers that I've had, so, Life Touch, Greenleaf, and now here at Vineyard, it's always kind of been the same thing. You have to know, for lack of a better word, you have to know your competition. Mm-hmm. You have to know what's in your backyard. You have to know the other options that people have that they can choose over you. And you need to know what's really great about them and maybe what's not so great about them. And I always use the word educate. So if somebody comes to me and we're sitting down and I'm talking to the family, and I'm always going to ask where they've looked at, outside of us. And I'm going to say, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What's important to your mom or your dad? And so then a lot of times they'll look at me and go, well, is that one good? Is that one bad? Tell me. And I say, all of them have a space, and they all take care of, residents. However, not all communities are the right fit for every, family member. So I need to know what you want, and I'm just going to educate you. So if you tell me this is important to you, I'm going to say, okay, well, if you're going to this community to look, ask these questions. So just giving them some inside information on the questions to ask when they're making that decision is top. For me, it's always going to be about creating that relationship with the person that you're working with. I always would joke when I was at the hotel that outside of what used to be Rio, we would sit down with a meeting planner and we would go through everything, and we'd have an hour meeting, and we would probably talk business for like 20 minutes. And then the rest of it, we're talking their kids, their dogs, like where they live. And then later I can send them a card and be like, hey, I heard it, I knew it was your daughter's birthday, or, something, very personal to them. So my role has always been to create that personal relationship. I got to do that a lot with the sports teams that I worked with at the hotel. And to this day, there's like 2 coaches that we're friends on Facebook. We talk to each other. But because I went out of my way to make these specific personal things happen during their stay, they would have never went anywhere else. The other thing is to make sure everything is customized to who you're selling to. There's a gentleman named Michael Marlowe that I found through being here at Vineyard. He also worked for Brookdale for a long time and does some teaching and coaching. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you don't give the same tour ever. Every time you meet with a family, it's going to be different. You're going to get burnt out if you say the same thing over and over and over and over again. And he actually encouraged us to have what we call a discovery room. And so we have a library in Vineyard, but it's kind of like a fishbowl. And so we don't always have that time to be in that space because it might be used for something else. So I talked our owners into taking out our billiards room with a pool table that really nobody used and turning it into more of a conference space. So that's someplace I can go now and sit down and really learn about the families and what their needs are. I may not even show them the activity room or, a certain room type because that's not what they're looking for. So I'm trying to make sure that everything that I do is customized directly to them. Oh,
that is such great advice and wisdom in anything you're doing, no matter what it is. And I want to go back to your core values of authenticity, because you're bringing Lena to these conversations. But I love what was that gentleman's name?
Michael Marlowe.
Yes, I love what Michael said, which is never give the same tour twice. Sage advice, and that you took that and you said, yeah, because can you imagine? I mean, I'm thinking about things that I've sold over the years, and I'm like, especially when I was younger, and you're learning. But if I could tell that to 25-year-ago Tony. So if you're young and listen to this, or hey, if you're middle-aged and listen to this, don't give the same sales pitch twice. And I love how you were leading up. And by leading up, I mean, you're like, listen, nobody's using this pool table. Let's make this space something more user-friendly. And let's use this so I can have conversations and that are customized to the people who are visiting our facility. So that's really cool. Great advice. Okay, you talked about a library, which got me thinking, and you're a fellow reader like me.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So if I got to give you a number, otherwise you'll probably tell me about a lot of books. So top 3 books that you would recommend anyone personal, professional, that have really meant a lot to you.
Yes. So personal, there was a book called Valentine that was written, and I read it. It was on the Jenna Bush Hager book club. I think it was like this author's first book. It's about a girl that in Texas. I won't give it away, but it just really resonated with me. I would say, as far as professional development books, right now I am reading The Energy Bus. So I've had it for a super long time. And okay, I'm gonna have to get up and look at my book. I gotta look at my bookshelf.
Okay, but you Energy Bus, like a bus you drive?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. She's looking at her bookshelves.
Oh, yes.
Great.
Magic of thinking big.
Okay.
I mean, I have probably like 25 sticky notes in here with like underlining and notes and all the things. So, love that. It's a little bit, for lack of a better word, not outdated, but the topics and the teaching and the education is all there. So I think that's one everybody should read.
Okay. I wrote them all down because I haven't read any of them.
Wow. Okay.
I know. This is awesome. I mean, and you know me, I read my age, so.
I know. I mean, I've read, I think the most was like 37 books in like 2020. and I've kind of went down from there, but you're giving me the motivation to read some more. So
I just learned this today. So you're getting this hot off the presses. This little um, fact I learned. Do you know what the average number of books someone reads per year is right now?
it's got to be scary low, I'm sure.
Yeah, about 3 books a year. And then the average CEO reads 12 books a year, which that's about a book
Okay.
a month. So I'm feeling really good about myself right now.
Yep. So question, Tony, I want to put this out there, with all my reading and all my groups that I belong to for books, there's this, controversy that says if you listened, you're not really reading.
Oh, I call bullshit.
Same. Okay.
I
If
call
you read it, you took it in
Yes.
in some way.
Now, I call bullshit because there's no way I could read my age if I didn't listen to at least about half the books. And I
Yeah.
keep track whether I listen or read.
Yep.
But no, I know there are people out there. They're the naysayers. And that's okay. But to me, it's a meanwhile habit. If I'm driving, I mean, let's make the best use of my time. Should I be learning something or
Right.
listening to the same song that I've heard 17,000 times? Meanwhile, I'm driving and listening to a book.
Totally agree.
Good. Yeah, you tell whoever said that to listen to us and come on our side. Yeah, but I'm just thinking of what I'm reading right now that you might like. I just finished a book called "We're All in This Together" by Mike Robbins.
Okay.
And it's really about team and when you work with a team of it, it's like culture and team. And I thought it was actually pretty good. I heard about that from one of my podcast guests. And then I'm reading right now, 3 Things a CEO Should Do or something like that by Trey Moore. And I'm finding that to be interesting. And I do have a CEO title in my business that I own, but I bestowed that upon myself. So does it count? I don't know. But anyway, so that's what I'm reading right now. And I'm trying to think personally. Oh, have you read or watched the True Blood series on TV?
No, not a huge vampire fan.
Yeah.
So I've heard of it, but no.
Neither am I, but someone recommended the whole series to me, so I thought, all right, and I bought the whole series, like 12
Oh,
books.
wow.
And I'm on book 9, and I haven't watched the show, but the books are, it's nice to get to something that's light. I mean, I guess some
Yes.
vampire smut is light.
Yep. Yep. I'm reading The Friend Zone right now, which is, like a rom-com, type book. So
Yeah, well, you got to lighten it up
easy.
sometimes. So one of the questions I like to ask my podcast guests is about like what they've changed their mind about. And it can be something small, but it could be something big in life. And the reason I ask this is because, there's this belief at times that we are who we are and we're hardwired this way and we can't change, which is, again, I'm going to go back to the word of the day today, bullshit, because our brains are plastic and we are allowed to change. So I want to know what you've changed your mind about, big or small, lately.
Sure. I mean, I would definitely say it's a big one. I didn't know what imposter syndrome was until probably a year or so ago when I started hearing about it, and then listening to some of your podcasts and hearing other people talk about it and understanding what it actually was. I was like, oh, yep, that's it. So I think and this was another reason why I wanted to be on the podcast too. Like, I'm not a college graduate, like did not go to college. I started working right out of high school and thought I'd be with Life Touch forever because they could teach me everything I needed to know. As things changed, life changes, jobs change. So when I started at Greenleaf, it was really hard for me because I was a shy child growing up, shy young adult. But I realized if I was going to make an impact and if I was going to make this successful, I had to step up and I had to figure out how to network and how to talk to people. And I would always say, like Derek Rika and I've talked about this, a few times where, Derek, you walk into everybody's office, what's on their wall? Their diploma, So I don't have that. What do you talk about when you first meet somebody? Oh, where'd you go to college? What's your degree in? Don't have that. So I had to be really strategic and think about what else I had to bring to the table instead of that and steer that conversation that way. So going through the Leadership Kalamazoo program was probably when things changed for me, because Gretchen Slank, she'd worked for Southwest Michigan. At the time, she ran our class, And she met me at Water Street and we were talking about this. And she said, Lena, do you think you're there yet? Like you've done all this training and coaching and learning on your own. Like, yes, you didn't go to college, but do you think you're in the space now that you belong in? And I'm like, absolutely. Because I've owned my own journey as far as learning and teaching myself on how to learn everything I probably would have learned if I had a degree, just by talking and asking people questions and learning from them. I mean, my husband said I should be a lawyer. I'm always, what's next? Why this? Why that? Well, can we do it this way? So I'm always interested in people's stories, and I feel like I could learn way more about how to be successful in life by learning from other people than maybe being, in college. But so that's what I have changed my mind about, that yes, you are in the space you belong to be, you belong in, and you can be a leader in this space, even though you don't have those credentials to back it up. So.
100%. I need to know this about your husband, though. Does he say you could be a lawyer because you're argumentative?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
So does mine. That's what, ask me how I know.
Yep. I'm always asking, well, why? Why do you think that way? What about this? And did you think about it like this? He's like, Lena, can I just think how I think? I'm like, well, yeah, but there's always a why. Like Simon Sinek, start with why, right? Like,
I have read that book. What's your husband's name?
Sean,
what's up? I my husband, because you two would probably get along famously. And it's interesting to know that you were a shy younger person, because you are anything but that. Like,
people say that all the time. Yeah, I'm like, no, I wouldn't leave my mom in the grocery store. Yeah.
Well, and that's a big change. Like, and you are not afraid. And you've given so much wisdom today, but another thing that you're not afraid to do is like reach out to someone and say, let's have coffee. Let's get together. I want to learn from you. And I encourage people to do this all the time when I'm speaking. And you know what? It's probably 1% of the time do people actually do it. And when they do, and I told you this when you reach out to me, I say yes.
Yep.
Because so few people do it. And yes, I'm a busy person, you're a busy person, but I want to make time to meet with other people who value what, you're seeking, or because I get stuff from it too. So kudos to you. This is something I encourage, and you do that. And it's clear throughout our conversation that you do that. Okay, 2 more things. Women in ... I named the podcast this for a reason, because I was originally going to go with just sports. I'm like, no, there's so many great stories out here, and we women wear so many different identities, hats, whatever. So how would you fill in those dots?
I would say for me is women in connection and community.
Yeah, I love it. Yep. And that's so true. And that's in your brand of who Lena is. Lena, if people want to connect with you and learn from you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn. Pretty proud of my LinkedIn page. I spent a lot of time on that. And this year I've said, okay, every Monday is your LinkedIn Monday. Like, you got to do something on there. So I am on there quite a bit. Facebook is a great spot as well. And I run our Facebook page for Vineyard. So if you're ever interested in anything about Vineyard, you can connect with me there.
Yeah. And Lena attended my Empower Her conference that I hosted too. And one of the things I want to point out is that you are this lifelong learner, connector. There's not a room where you're afraid to walk into. And one of the things that I write down, just to be mindful and intentional, because things just don't happen, is to be in the room. And you're a good example of that too. So I just want to pay you that kudos as well. You're kicking ass, lady.
Appreciate it. Trying.
If you all want to connect with me, I too am not hard to find. You can, if you're interested in the sports side of my life, kwings.com. The other side of my life on lifestyle coaching, professional development coaching, TonyWillCoaching.com and mindfulnesselevated.com. I am only on 3 social media platforms because I can't handle any more than that. Facebook and LinkedIn at Tony Lentini Will. And then I'm on Instagram at I'm Tony Will. And until next time.